All right, I'm slowly coming back from my adventures in Montana. And I've been reflecting a lot on my journey. Like, how did I get here? To the point where, like, this is where I work. And this is, like, my life. I get to do these amazing sessions with people and help them trust their intuition and give them validation as to what they're feeling and experiencing. And having taught my embodied tarot class over the summer, just really looking at how these tools that I use with tarot and astrology and Reiki and meditation, those are like my 4 main cornerstones right there: tarot, astrology, Reiki, and meditation. And all of those together have really helped to heighten my intuition and help me trust it and give me outside validation or just internal opening. And together those things have allowed me to really deepen into my own awareness. A lot of people get sessions with me and they think I'm just like somehow super gifted and magical, and I appreciate that, but we actually all are. Like, we can all do this, and I might have come in wired just a little more sensitive to feeling and sensing things, but anyone can turn that up inside of themselves. And so I wanted to talk specifically because one of the things I do is tarot and teach about it and share it and do readings for people. I wanted to talk about how tarot specifically really assisted me in activating and trusting my own intuition, because it is something outside of myself, right? These cards are tangible, they're physical, they exist in this physical reality. It's not just a vague sense, which is kind of how for a lot of people the intuition starts. It's just this subtle little feeling or knowing you have. But if you don't have things in your external reality to corroborate what you're feeling or back it up, it can be really hard to trust that, because we live in a world that really values logic and evidence, and those aren't bad things, right? It's just that has become such a focus that we've actually done ourselves a disservice, and we've gotten away from being able to trust what we sense. Jamie is saying, I love this. My cards often go unused for long periods of time, but I always go back to them when I'm feeling wobbly. That's wonderful. Yeah, and you don't need tarot. I'm not teaching you this because it's like the be all end all, we need this. You don't need tarot. We have our intuition. Good morning, Desiree. Mwah! I love you so much, and I miss you, and I'm gonna see you soon. Stephanie, you are a great teacher. Thank you. I'm glad I'm sharing too. It took me a while to get to a point where I was comfortable. Like, okay, I do have stuff to share. I have stuff to share. We're sharing it. So the cards, you don't need them, but they do give a certain amount of validation when they speak to, I was already feeling this. And whenever I do a reading for someone, I'm always like, the cards should not tell you anything you don't already know. It should be something that you were kind of already sensing, and they're just saying, yeah, that's what's going on, or look at this more. So when I started reading, I had a more standard deck, which I actually don't even have my Rider-Waite-Smith deck here today, but the Everyday Tarot deck by Biddy Tarot is really based on the more classic tarot imagery. Okay, there's a good old death, 10 of Swords. We got some of our gnarly cards coming up, 8 of Swords. So these images were a little more challenging for me at first because I was trying to learn tarot in a very academic way. Like, let me memorize and learn and know everything about every single card. I didn't realize I could just read the card and talk about it. So then I switched to this deck, the Osho Zen Tarot, which is not a standard tarot deck. It doesn't even have the standard cards, but every card had a keyword on it, which really helped me. And then this beautiful, rich imagery. And I was already more like leaning towards Buddhism. I started meditating when I was 12. I had been like reading about Buddhist philosophy and teachings for a while. So when I got this deck when I was 16, it really spoke to me more than the standard tarot. And so I'm just going to show you some of the images. Suppression. This is like 10 of Wands, okay? This would be 10 of Wands. But it doesn't have wands. It was the suit of fire, which I could tell by the red, the number 10. But I didn't even have to pay attention to that because the images and the word were enough for me. And then it came with a really thick, nice guidebook that included like Buddhist teachings and parables for each card. And that is one of the ways I learn is through story. And so because every card had a story and a teaching attached to it, it really spoke to me. And that's why I'm always encouraging you, find a deck that you connect with, that you resonate with. That is key, because you are building a bridge to your own intuition. And so what I did is when I got this deck and it had these beautiful images that really resonated with me, I would do a reading, I would lay the cards out, and I would already start getting a sense of the answers to my questions. Like I would ask a question and lay out the cards, and but I wouldn't always trust it. Like it would start coming in before I'd even turn the cards over. But as soon as I saw the cards, it gave me an anchor. It gave me a focus. And that's how you can really start to use tarot as like a touch point for what you're already sensing. It just almost gives it permission to come through, like, oh, I was feeling this, but here it is. Like, let me start here. Let me speak to this. And then as I would journal when I would pull cards for myself. As I was journaling, more stuff would just start flowing, and I could really go more deeply into looking at a situation in my life, or into getting some clarity and guidance for myself. And so tarot really opened the door by giving me something external and something to focus on and kind of trust more, which it sounds kind of sad that I couldn't trust myself, but I didn't. And I don't think it's a bad thing to need validation and evidence and proof. And so using the cards as a way to corroborate and back up what I was sensing open the door to even more of my intuition and my guidance coming through. And then when I would read for other people, I find it easier to read for other people than myself. And I definitely, when I'm really looking at something, I absolutely consult other readers and trusted friends that do this, because we do have our own lenses, and it's just easier to read for someone else, especially for me, strangers, because like I have no attachment. I don't even know you, but I can tap into the energy that's coming through. And I had grown up, like sometimes I would make people a little uncomfortable with offering whatever was dropping in as we're talking, and they'd be like, wait, how do you know this stuff? Or you're just really speaking to something deep, like how is that possible? And so for me, the cards with other people gave me a little bit of a security blanket or a buffer, because I could say, oh, I'm reading the cards, you know, like because I didn't even understand what was happening. I didn't know that when I was really little, I didn't know that other people didn't feel all the layers going on with someone else. I just didn't understand that. And then when I realized that other people weren't sensing what I sensed, and a lot of people were hiding their own truth from themselves, and they could get really uncomfortable if you spoke to a truth that they weren't ready or willing to acknowledge, I kind of shut down. It was just easier to just not talk to people, because I have a really hard time with just small talk. And so I could talk about books I was reading or information things, because I love information. I love soaking in information. Or we could go real deep into like what's really going on under the surface. But not everyone wants to do that. So I spent a lot of time just reading growing up and not talking to people, which is funny now, because like I talk to people for a living and I love talking to people, and I'm like Leo Sun Sag Rising who loves to talk. But I spent the first 17 years of my life not talking that much. I had like a couple really close friends, and that was about it. Most people that knew me when I was young would probably have said that I was really shy and quiet and like bookish. Surprise! I am those things, and I'm also totally not those things. So when I would read for people, it would open up a conversation. It was also a more appropriate environment. Like, obviously, like when you're just talking to someone at the grocery store, they don't necessarily want you diving into like all of their layers. Or like, you know, at a party at my parents' friend's house or something that they dragged me to. You know, things happen. I would make people uncomfortable. It's all right. But other people not. You know, there were always people that were open. But I could use the cards as a way to help them see as well. Like, I'm not just sitting here reading you. And knowing things. It helps, and it helps as well to have a relationship to the images. The images speak to the other person I'm reading for, and so we can look at the images and use the images as a way to open a dialogue that lets us get to those deeper layers, because we can start, the images are layered. Tarot is layered. It's not just this one card means this one thing. There's so many layers. And so we could start with something that feels a little more comfortable, like an access point, and then you can like draw relationships between the cards and start to like work down into those deeper layers in a way that's a little more comfortable, rather than just sitting across from someone and going like deep, 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 deep. I could go off on a whole tangent about a lot of not so great readers out there that there's certain things you just, y'all, I have a background in social work, and I'm really thankful for it, because the work I do really is social work, and there needs to be a little more sensitivity and awareness, especially to trauma, if you're going to read for someone. So I'm not saying you even need to go into all the layers with someone. If you're going to be reading for people, know that you're doing really deep, intimate, vulnerable work, and make sure you have the training and the resources and the discernment to do that work. I've spent years getting that training and support, and so I'm not saying you shouldn't read for people if you don't have like a therapy degree or a master's in social work or something, not at all. But there is a level of discernment and sensitivity that's absolutely required if you're going to do deep readings with people and let stuff come through. So that said, the cards are absolutely a way to get deeper and to open the doors to trusting what you're sensing, because you can see it's backed up. And because the cards have so many different meanings, let me pull one here. Seven of Swords. There's a lot of ways we could interpret this. Is he sneaking away with some of the swords? Is he trying to stop the battle because he's taking away the enemy's swords? Is he taking away the swords of his team because he's like a spy? We don't know. There's so many ways you can interpret this image right here, okay? And so you have to trust what you sense. Sure, you can look it up in a book and get like a list of things, but even that is layers usually. If you have like a good tarot guidebook, it's going to go deeper, and there's going to be multiple ways to interpret this card. You have to trust what you sense in the moment. That's where the intuition comes into play when we're working with tarot. There isn't just a right or wrong answer. There's subtleties, there's layers. And so when you're reading tarot, trust which layer is coming up for you, even if you interpreted this card very differently the day before. In this moment, for this question, for this person you're reading for, it's going to mean something, it might mean something different. You're going to have a different take on this, right? Let's pull a different one. The Devil. Sometimes the Devil is about too much. It's about excess. Sometimes it's about, hey, you need to invite out your shadow. You need to embrace it. You need a little more hedonism in your life. You know, there's a lot of different ways to read this card. And so trusting that is trusting your intuition. When you can go to just speak, just start somewhere, speak into what feels right, what feels aligned, what you are sensing and feeling when you see the card. And I would encourage you to do that as an exercise. Like, put your tarot book away, the guidebook away, and tell your brain, like, hey brain, you don't need to be like reaching for what each card means, what are sevens, what are swords. Just put all of that in the background, and maybe even get a deck you've never worked with before. Borrow a deck from a friend, use a deck you haven't really connected with, or not. If you don't have that, it's fine. Pull some cards. Maybe just start with 3. Pull 3 cards for yourself, past, present, future, you know? Or the question, subconscious influences, conscious influences. Okay, something like that. Little simple 3-card reading. Pull the cards, and then literally just write down the first things. It's like the association, the Rorschach test, like the first things that are coming with each card, and what you're drawn to, how you're drawn to read that card in that moment. That is a way of building a bridge to your intuition, because your intuition is what's already feeding you information before you've even pulled cards, before you've even like articulated your question. Your question itself is guided by your intuition. We know things. We are always taking in information. We're taking in subtle energy all around us. We're responding to the energy in our environments. We're responding to deeper things within ourselves. And it's all happening very quickly a lot of times, beyond the awareness of our conscious, logical, analytical mind. There's so much of our mind we're not even fully aware of or using. And as you deepen into trusting your intuition, you're actually activating more of that, more of your literal brain power. And as you work with the pineal gland, which is kind of what drives our intuition, you're able, it gets stronger, it will get louder, it will feel less subtle over time when you stop always defaulting to the logical, rational, analytical mind. And so it'll come quicker. And that's why, like, now I'm at a point where I can like pull cards or someone and just like go with it. I don't even have to pull cards, but I like working with cards. I like having something outside myself that helps guide what I'm sensing. And it also gives me, because I'm laying out the cards in a particular way, it gives me something to focus on. So it's not just all of this information coming in. I can be like, okay, we're actually going to start here. This is the best starting point for this deeper journey of exploration and receiving guidance and validation that we're diving into. So yeah, I like doing really deep readings. I offer hour-long sessions with clients because it's not, I tell them, it's not just about you getting information. There's actual energetic work happening and shifting while we're moving through this reading. So sometimes I leave the cards out overnight because they're representing energies that are moving. Sometimes I'll build a crystal grid around the cards. I always want people to have the image of their cards to work with for themselves, to meditate on, to just see and have it imprint and keep doing its work, because it's bringing things into our awareness so that we can choose the reality we're creating from this deeper place of our inner guidance. It's a really beautiful thing. And I can wax poetic about it forever, but I'm going to wrap things up for now. I hope this was helpful, and I really encourage you, if you are drawn to cards at all, if you've been intimidated, but you're curious, just try it. There is no right or wrong with this stuff. Try it and see. It's a really beautiful way to help open your intuition and help you begin to trust it more and have something outside of yourself to validate what you're already sensing. So that's our Talkin Tarot for today, and I'll see you again next week. Mwah! Thank you, Anna. I love you too, and I think you're awesome. I think you're all awesome. All right, bye.